this morning at way too early in the AM, which I define as anything before 7 o'clock, the news came down the pipeline and arrived in my emailings that the manuscripts have been approved.
Oh.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. First time, best time. I liked it. So I immediately then had to arrange to order proofs because they don't let you do anything without a proof, apparently.
Right.
And I was then greeted by a series of bad gateway errors out of Drive-Thru RPG.
Yeah, seems to be typical for the Drive-Thru RPG experience based on what I've done. So I did eventually get my proofs ordered. It only took an extra 45 minutes beyond what it should have. Okay.
And they're now wending their way to me. And as soon as those proofs arrive, and I, check them as perfunctorily as I am likely to do, they can then be sold. And that means I will have a game live and published and ready for people to buy.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. And if the proofs arrive on the 1 week side of 1 to 3 weeks of arrival, then probably we will be good to go on the Ides of March.
Oh.
And I will push the publish button. Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that.
No, not either.
No, I'll probably end up waiting a few days. I don't do anything on the Ides of March.
No, that's true.
No.
That's fine. You can wait. I don't care. But I'm even, at this point, I'm even prepared to talk price points. This is the other half of the fun, too, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. I had just 10 minutes before uploaded and priced the files needed to, actually make books and things, and calculated how much it was going to cost me, and then how much the profit margin and blah, 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 all this other stuff. I'd done all that, right? Put it up, clicked the little button that says, please check all these files to make sure they work properly. When Drive-Thru sent me an email saying, hey, by the way, in April, all our print-on-demand prices are changing.
Oh.
So next April, I have to look and see, how screwed up is this now? So we'll see what happens. But for right now, you can get, when the 15th rolls around, you can get the PDF, just the PDF itself, for $20.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Okay. You can get the softcover color book for $25.
Oh, that's a good price.
And you can get the hardcover color book for $30.
$30 for the hardcover?
Yes, sir.
Print on demand?
Yes, sir. But yeah, that's what we're looking at. And then if you do a bundle thing where you get the PDF and one of the books together, instead of paying the cost of the book and the cost of the PDF, we'll throw in the PDF for half price. So to make that clear, the softcover book plus the PDF will be $35, and the hardcover plus the PDF will be $40. Neat, huh?
Very good. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm really pleased I passed that first hurdle where they approved all the files.
Yeah. Yeah, and they seem to have done it quick. What did it take, 2 or 3 days?
2 days, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yep. So,
hurrah for our side.
Yay.
I will.
I'm glad you went the print on demand route, because if it was only a PDF, I would buy it and never read it.
I know you're mean that way.
I can't read stuff on a screen.
I can't either. Not on a computer screen. I have learned to adapt my laptop so that I can read, and I just turn it sideways so it's taller.
No, I can't do that. I have one of those Kindle Fire HDs, like the Kindle that's also like a tablet, but
yes.
It's not really a tablet.
My mother has one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tablet, but it's got its own low self-esteem.
That's right.
So it's like, yeah, I know, I'm not an iPad.
Yeah. I'm not a real thing yet.
So, but I can't even read on that.
Yeah.
The closest I can get is I can occasionally read websites or blogs on there.
Uh-huh.
But anything long form, I'm not going to read it if I only have an electronic copy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's really hard to do. Like I have a number of PDF files for games and whatnot that I have collected over the years. Like somebody I know will do a thing, and I'll just buy one of the PDFs for essentially moral support. But I never end up reading them. And I've got this huge library of things. In fact, I just rediscovered the library here the other day. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there that I never have read. I could be sitting on the world's best game ever, and I wouldn't even know it.
Yeah, see that I have a ton of PDF content and stuff. And the only thing I'll use it to reference occasionally, like if I'm sitting at the computer and I need to look up something or research something, or I'm writing a script for a podcast and I need to confirm the description of some monster.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can do that sort of research, but
yeah, long-term reading does not work for me at all.
No, I like to lay in my bed with a physical book. I want a tree to have died for my entertainment.
That's right.
Yep.
That's the only way to know it's been genuinely entertaining.
I want to show this environment who's boss.
There you go. You win.
It serves me.
Speaking of PDFs, I found the 13th Age PDFs that I was given a long time ago by
oh, did you?
Was it Wade? Was it Wade that gave me those? I think it was Wade that gave me those.
Wade Rocket?
Yeah.
Probably.
I accidentally expressed interest in it at one point, and Wade went, "Here, have all these.
have the books.
That's
right.
Talk
about our game.
Have these." So, yes, 13. So that brings us to you and your game.
Well, I did actually run my first 13th Age game this week.
Cool.
Or the first session of the introductory one-shot.
Oh, geez.
That, well, like I said, I'm not committing to running a campaign in this game until I've tried it for a couple of weeks, and the players have tried it for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And, the thing is, and I'm afraid now, because it's all starting to come back to me, that I remember sitting there at Gen Con, running the game for the first time for a group of fresh-faced people. Because I think I explained this last time, right? I was a very big supporter of 13th Age when it was coming out, and so I was running games for them at Gen Con. That was my first time playing and running the game, and man, was it a blast. And I'm like, wow, this is fun. This is going to be the greatest game ever. And I'm so, there were some hang-ups with the game because I'm teaching it to people who have never played it or read it. But that's exactly what I was doing there, and there were some difficult concepts in there. So, especially one of the players, he is a mutual friend of ours. Though, for respect, I will not mention that I'm torturing him with regular games online. He's not used to all this newfangled D&D gaming crap. He had no experience with 4th edition and all that other stuff. He's an old school guy.
Right. I know who you're talking about already.
Yep. So it's like all this garbage about flexible attacks and stuff, and these are. Yeah, because some highlights from the game, some of the mechanics that I was reminded of. I forgot how obsessed 13th Age was with natural die rolls. It likes to know exactly what you rolled on the die. Okay, there are so first we have a fighter at the table. And primarily what the fighter does is he runs up and makes an attack with his sword or whatever, as fighters do. And then he has these flexible attacks. And what that allows him to do is, no, I'm not even going to try and explain the logic in the game world. We're just going to go with the mechanics.
Right.
Depending on what the natural die result is, he can add a little extra whammy to his attack. Okay, so for example, if he rolls a natural 16 or better, he then enjoys a +2 armor class until the end of his next turn.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And if it's a miss, but it's an even numbered miss, the die is a natural even number, and the attack misses, he can, he gets sort of a building damage die.
Right.
So he gets a bonus to his next attack's damage that hits, because he's pissed off that his attack missed. It's called like Grim Intent. It's like, I'll get you next time.
All right.
Or something like that. So like he's spending the whole time obsessed with his natural die roll. Then on top of that, monsters have effects that key off natural die rolls sometimes. So like there were some giant spiders, and if they bit a hero and they got a natural 16 or better, the hero was also poisoned. And it's a lot to get used to, just like watching the die rolls.
Yeah, because it sounds like at this point, anytime you roll a die, you're looking for upwards of 3 different things on any given roll.
Well, see, this is the interesting thing, is that it's sort of limited, like the cognitive load you personally have for what the die is doing is limited to if you're playing certain types of characters. And the number of different die rolls you're looking for are pretty small. So it's not like you're trying to remember like, and this is a 70 or whatever. Like there's only really 3 things. Either it's an even number, it's an odd number, or it's 16 or better.
Okay.
Or it's 5 or worse.
Okay.
For miss effects.
Sure.
Right. And that's pretty much it. And as most classes aren't actually looking for natural die rolls. And you're very rarely in a position where you're looking at natural die rolls of other people, unless you're playing a very complicated character like a bard who has opted into that garbage. So, and then there are some classes that are really centered around, like our friend, the wild magic sorcerer, that, is just an execution nightmare in every edition of every game it's ever appeared in. Right. It's a disaster there too.
Okay.
But it's kind of funny because as I was typing up the character sheet for the fighter, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is a massive pain in the butt. Maybe this is why I didn't like the game. And then when we started playing it, I'm like, actually, it's just, he's only looking for 2 different things. Did I miss or did I hit? And is it an even number or is it a 16? If I hit, did I hit with a 16? And if I miss, and that's no worse than looking for a crit, So it's like, maybe that's not so bad. And there's a limit on the number of these maneuvers the character will ever get. So you never have like a giant spell book. And at high levels, you actually start replacing them. Because they sat and they figured, like the maximum number of natural numbers we can ask people to look for is 3. So after that, if you have 3 of those things, you're going to have to replace one maneuver with another.
Okay.
Which, so like, there were things that I was looking at as I was making the characters, like, I think this is the disaster happening. This is going to be... And then once we got into play, it's like, no, none of this is bad. It seems that Messrs. Hainso and Tweet did seem to have some wisdom about limiting how much of anything that they were asking that they were asking any one player to keep track of. So I'll, at least so far.
All right.
One session. And it was like half a session because I spent half the session just introducing the character sheet to the players. Because it runs on the 4th edition stuff, sort of. So it's like all that at-will encounter daily stuff.
Right.
So I was color coding stuff. It's like, okay, this will be green and this will be red and this will be blue or yellow. Or I'm sorry, black. Green, red, and black. Those were the colors. And then you get to the flexible stuff, and it's like, well, flexible is a completely different expenditure. Okay, those will be blue. And then I hit, like, okay, this is a recharge power, which comes back once every other fight. But only if you make a die roll. Okay, I'll make that one yellow. And then I hit one that is, if you use it on even-numbered rounds, it's at will, and if you use it on odd-numbered rounds, it's red. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that one? So I made it a green-red gradient.
Wow. Okay.
But the sad thing is, like, as I'm looking at this stuff, and the players had the same reaction. I'm looking at the character sheet, I'm like, this is needlessly complicated. It looks needlessly complicated and clumsy. And as I'm going through the character sheet, because they at least need to know what's on their character sheet, they're sort of saying the same things. They keep making noises at me that sound like, why did they do this? And then we start playing the game. It actually all kind of worked. The machine worked fine. And gradually it became clear some of the wisdom behind some of their decisions. Like, I sort of understand that whole half the time it's an at-will power and half the time it's an encounter power thing.
Please to explain it to me.
What?
Please explain that bit to me.
Well, so... So do you remember from 13th Age the escalation die?
I vaguely do, yes.
Yeah. So the idea, you basically, every round, starting with the second round, there is an increasing bonus to hit. +1, then +2, then +3, then all the way through to +6.
Right.
And that's enjoyed by the players, not the monsters. Okay.
In an effort to speed things up, I presume.
Well, that's the thing, is it, like, there's even wisdom behind that, because I had one of my players questioned it right off the bat. They're like, so as long as we don't die in the first 2 rounds, we automatically just win the fight eventually. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You're right, that does seem like a stupid idea. I mean, I sort of understand why it is, because by the end of the fight, you're never missing.
Right.
So once you've hit that mop-up phase, then you have finished the fight, and so it makes sure that the fight ends decisively.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But what they did, and I found this little note in a sidebar somewhere in the otherwise wonderfully explained rules, where you can find everything easily, and they're like, yeah, by the way, just so you know, all the monsters' defenses are too high.
Oh, right.
So the players start the battle in the hole. And the escalation die catches them up to where their attack bonuses should be. So every fight starts harder than it should be. And at the middle point of the fight, it's an even match. And then after that, it's, now the players have the distinct advantage if they have survived that long. Which means the danger in the fight is front-loaded. Either the fight's going to be lost in the first 3 rounds, or the fight's going to be won by round 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? That's actually a pretty smart way to pace a fight. Because usually by the 4th or 5th round, you know whether they've won or lost. Right?
Right.
So on top of that, though, they have built in these effects, and I swear this is going back to the question you asked about why cyclic powers exist.
Yep.
But they've built in these effects that key off the escalation die. Like the Barbarian, as the escalation die builds, can do more and gets more bonuses. Okay, because it's like growing rage. In the first rounds of the fight, the Barbarian is just not... Yeah, he's warming up. So he hits the 3rd round and suddenly he's got these escalation mechanics that have just suddenly made him this monster.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. And the bard becomes more powerful as the escalation die grows because he's building off the party's momentum and inspiration. So they do neat things with it. And other characters work best when the escalation die is a little bit lower and so on and so forth. But they also used the escalation die to tell players when was the best time to use certain abilities. Which brings us around to this whole cyclical spell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he has this spell. It's a fairly decisive spell. Okay, it's not a nuke everybody spell, but it is an area effect spell. It does substantial damage, and it weakens the group. And it's a little bit stronger than what you would expect from an at-will, but it's not quite as powerful as those spells you can only use once a battle. So it kind of sits in an in-between state. And tactically, that can make it confusing to decide where to use. If you decide to use it early in the fight because of the way it interacts with the escalation die, you're never going to be able to use it again in that fight. Okay, but if you wait until the third round of the fight where the escalation die is 2, and that's the first time it's an even number, and you unleash it then, you can unleash it again in the fight. So what it's saying is, now's not the time to use this. It looks like a good opener, but it's really more of a mid-battle spell. If you need it as an opener, if you have no better option, you can use it that way, but it's going to cost you resources. But if you hold this back for the mid-game where it's going to have the most impact, because it's also it has a hit point trigger on it, so the enemies have to be a little weakened.
Mm-hmm.
So if you use this in the mid-game, or as a turning point spell, that's really better off. And as I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, that is a lot that they built into this signal. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting it. But
yeah,
I feel like I'm sure it reads differently in the book, okay? But it feels to me at the moment as if they are telling you how the game is meant to be played rather than letting you discover how the game is meant to be played.
Well, no, see, that's the thing. If they simply said, this power can only be used after round 3, or this is a mid-game power. Mm-hmm. They had some kind of rule that said this is a mid-game power. Then yeah, they're telling you that. Instead, they're saying this spell becomes more powerful on these rounds.
Okay.
And if you use it, and then they're leaving it to you to realize, if I use this too early in the fight, I have expended a major resource. If I hold back, then it's much less costly, and it actually, then that sort of leads you to discover, oh, hey, it's actually more effective here. But they don't say that outright. They don't say this is where the spell actually changes the course of the battle. They just give you the option and say, you can use this early, but then it'll be gone for the whole fight. If you wait a couple of rounds until the round ticker is here, then you'll have a couple of uses of it. You can use it again and again. Now, at the same time, what that does is it kind of signals to the player without forcing the player that on round 3 of the fight, unless there's a compelling reason to do something else, that's when you unleash this power. And it's kind of important because the wizard, because it's the wizard who can cast this, has a lot of spells, a lot of options on every round. So there are these mechanics built into the powers that effectively short list the spells. So like, on round 3, you have an easy decision to make. It's like, are you going to use this or not? Because that's the first time that you can use it and really amp up its power. If you use it before then, you can use it, but, you're expending a resource to do it. And there's other methods built into the spells, especially the more complicated the character, the more weird little resource management tricks are there to kind of slot the spells into points in the battle where they're best at, without explicitly forcing it. You always have the option to use them whenever you want, but if you watch the mechanics and say, okay, this is where it'll have the most oomph, it lends itself to figuring out the strategy. And then you can actually feel good about that. I'm starting to suspect there's actually a lot more cleverness in the mechanical design of this system, specifically in the combat engine, than I gave it credit for.
Okay. So
it's just a shame about the rest of it.
Yeah. So there might actually be a really excellent game hiding under a really bad tablecloth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I kind of realized in running it, and this kind of, like, I've fallen into a little bit of an OSR rabbit hole.
Uh-oh.
Is where this is going.
I didn't push you, did I?
No.
Okay.
No. This isn't your fault.
Oh, good.
But here's also what I noticed, is that the combat engine in that game is very mechanically rigorous, just as it was in 4th edition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's a tactical game. It's like playing Final Fantasy Tactics or Ogre Battle or that stuff. And it's unapologetically that. Without a grid, though. Which is kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very happy for that, because I like that. I like the tactical crunchy meatiness. But outside of combat, the action resolution system is much less mechanically proscribed. Okay. That is like, how in D&D, the skills are all spelled out, and if you read the description of each skill, it tells you how to set the DCs. So like if you're jumping, this is how you set the DC when you're using your athletic skill. And all of that stuff. Like, there's rules around every skill that tell you how to set the DC and what the skill can be used for. And anything that isn't a skill, use an ability check for.
Right.
So that whenever you're trying to build a challenge, you're like, okay, so I have this pit. I got to go look up in the book to figure out what the DC is if the party jumps it or climbs it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
For 13th Age doesn't have that. It stops at ability check. It lets you specify broad areas of knowledge, basically, that your character has. They call them backgrounds. So, like, you could be a burglar.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you could have 2 points in burglaring.
Right.
So when you say, I'm going to pick the lock, and the GM says, okay, give me a dexterity check, you could say, well, I'm a burglar. And the GM could say, yeah, you are. So add your +2. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're fencing stolen goods, or trying to negotiate with a member of the criminal underworld, you could even say, well, I'm a burglar. I know how to negotiate with criminals. And they're like, okay, yeah, make your charisma check with the +2.
Right.
Okay. And that's the beginning and the end of the action resolution rigor.
All right. So far, I'm on board.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
I don't see a problem with it.
No, me neither.
Most of the time, that's how I run my games when we come to using skills and things.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I mean, I'm totally the same way. It's like I start with the ability check and let people add proficiency bonuses if they can. In fact, I've had a couple of big arguments the last few days in my Discord about all of this that led to one member, Alyssa, completely rewrote the D&D 5th edition character sheet to create to make that approach explicit.
Cool.
Yeah.
We should link to her character sheet. Where is that?
I have not yet obtained permission to distribute.
Okay. All right.
when I do, I will check with her, and then I'll make sure I get you a link, because it'll be before these show notes go up.
Okay.
Because I would also like to distribute it through my secret stash.
Absolutely.
But I'll make that available to everyone. But yeah, but the lack of mechanical rigor outside of combat, I think that was what was hanging me up the most in 4th edition.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I really did like the combat engine in 4th edition. I needed it to be a little looser. I needed it to lighten up a little bit on me.
Mm-hmm.
I needed it to stop specifying things like you are not your own ally, and therefore you cannot use a heal check on yourself to douse yourself if you catch fire. I needed it to shut up about that stuff. Okay. But I really did like the emphasis on every character and every monster is built around a particular strategy, and the individual elements on their character sheets mostly provide tactical actions they can take toward that strategy. And then, so every character has a strategy they're trying to implement, and they have the tools to do that. And usually they have one major strategy and one minor strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that aspect of 4th edition. I'm almost at the point now where if I stripped out everything except the combat engine from 4th edition, I'd have a game I wanted to play. And man, I never thought I would say that, but I really love the combat game in 4th edition.
Wow.
And I know people say it was, like, I also want to go on record here as saying that the whole how long it took to resolve a combat was a myth. Okay, it takes 60 minutes to resolve a combat, or whatever. It's like, no, you just have to run combat better.
I'll grant you part of that, I suppose.
Okay.
Because
so the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, truth is somewhere in the middle. Because my experience was so limited with 4th edition, I can't really say for sure, but it did seem when I was playing it a lot more fiddly. And fiddly to me translates into more time spent on it than needed.
This is something else that I discovered in running this game that like completely invalidated 90% of my problems with running games online that we had a 2-week conversation about.
Right. Okay.
Did you know you can just open a blank map in Fantasy Grounds and hastily scribble on it?
I didn't, because I don't Fantasy Ground.
Like, you could put a grid on there, and then you could just like draw lines and stuff.
Cool. All better now? You weren't aware. I'm sorry. I just assumed that you were aware of that sort of facility in whatever program you were using.
No, because then, okay. So here's what we did with this game to resolve all of my problems. Okay. We use Discord for voice chat, obviously. So that we can hear each other.
Right.
No video chat, but what can you do? I gave everybody a character sheet that they could print out or have open as a PDF or whatever they wanted. I don't care. I had all my stuff on paper, and actually, ironically, I typed the stuff in the computer and then printed it out so that I could use it to run a game at the computer. But I'm just more comfortable flipping through paper.
Sure.
Then you could splay out the sheets and keep notes and stuff. Okay. Opened up Fantasy Grounds. Used it as a die roller. And then I discovered I could open a blank map and scribble on it and just drop tokens on it. And I'm like, this is it. That's all I want. I do not want any more functionality than that. I do not want the thing to track initiative for me or target things or whatever. I just want people, and I had to keep yelling at them though, because the other thing I want is that you roll your die and tell me the result. Okay, and they kept throwing their die in the die roller like I could see it. And I mean, I could, but I wasn't always looking at the screen.
Right.
I have my notes in front of me.
Sure.
You know, and when they're attacking a monster, I'm looking down at the monster stats. It's like, so they would throw the attack roll, and it's, you know, I'll run up and slash at the goblin with my longsword. Okay, great. Give me an attack roll. Did I hit? I don't know. What's your roll? Well, can't you see it? I even added the modifiers on. Just tell me the number.
Goodness.
Because I'm not looking at the screen. I'm looking at its armor class, waiting to hear the numbers so I can say, you hit.
Guys, I'm a GM. I use these dice rolls to do accounting. Come on. This is
Did you
10
forget
seconds.
how to role-playing game at a table?
Yeah. This is 10 seconds of accounting work I can get done right here. Okay.
And then the other thing, because 13th Age is all based on, like, it has all the same, like, short-term effects and durations and lots of little conditions that get splayed around. So, like, you know, one character will run up and his attack is an inspiring attack because he's a cleric of the god of leadership. So, you know, he slashes something and everybody gets a +1 bonus because they're so impressed by how he hit that guy, you know, until the end of his turn. And then I admit there's just enough of those little fiddly things that if you're not good at tracking that stuff, it can kind of bog you down a little bit. Mm-hmm. But like halfway through the first fight, all of a sudden I found myself like I had developed a whole series of very short abbreviations. I developed a shorthand for running 4E combats. You know, like +1 ATT, EOT, G, which is like this person has a +1 to attack until the end of the turn of Gulg or George or whatever. Uh-huh. Right? And then I would just like shoot those things down and erase them. And because I was looking at them right on my initiative sheet, every time someone's turn came up, I could remind them, all right, you know, Alice, it's your turn. You know, you're still feeling inspired from George's attack. So you get a +1 to attack and so what do you want to do? You know, in addition to the normal, there's 2 goblins fighting you right now.
Right.
Stuff. You could just throw in those little modifiers so everybody doesn't have to remember it. And man, that just came back to me. I felt so in my element.
Well, cool.
Anyway, I had a lot of fun.
I'm glad.
Now I'm scared. Because I still know there is something about 13th Age. Something kept me from playing it. And I can't remember what it is.
I keep thinking that I want to go back to the kind of games that we played and ran in, you know, for me, it was 4th grade. That's when I first ran into D&D and whatnot. And back then, all we did was, you know, draw a map and then sprinkle some monsters around it and then go into the map and fight said monsters.
Yeah.
That was the whole entire plot right there. Go in here, kill everything, come back out. What did you get? Oh, goody. Oh, you're a new level. That means new monsters next time.
Well, I realized on the same topic, and I have a player at my Pathfinder table. That's the real life group I'm running.
Uh-huh.
And he is very specific when he describes what he's doing. So at one point, like I remember he was opening a door. And he said, I transfer my sword into my left hand.
Uh-huh.
Pull open the door or something like that. It was something about, he was specifying that he wasn't dropping his weapon, that he was keeping his weapon at the ready in the other hand and pulling open the door or doing so. Like he was just juggling equipment.
Because that used to matter.
Like, I started to notice that he did it with every action. He was very specific about, and yeah, it did, right?
Uh-huh. It mattered a lot. If you didn't say those things, your GM was very likely to jump out and go, aha, but you can't do that because you're holding the door open with the same hand that's holding your sword. Therefore, you cannot react to the attack, blah, 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 you know. Like,
now, see, you went in the wrong direction with that. Because I finally asked him about it. This is not where my story was going, by the way. But I did finally ask him about it. I'm like, you are very specific when you describe your actions. Did something happen? Were you bitten by a GM at some point? And he said, yes, he was.
Yep.
He had a GM. Obviously, this experience affected him greatly because it's still with him today.
Traumatic.
At one point in a combat, he dropped his sword in order to draw something else. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right, because you had to.
Right. You drop your sword, you pull out your potion, you down your potion, and then you grab your sword again. Mm-hmm. Or no, he didn't. It was like he dropped his sword to pull out a crossbow, fired off a shot. At that point, the fight was done. Mm-hmm. Okay? Then the party resumes its travels. 2 days later, they're attacked by something.
Oh, no. He didn't specify he picked up his sword again, did he?
Right. And the GM screwed him on. He's like, I'm sorry. Remember 2 days ago when you dropped your sword, you never picked... Like, but see, that is the completely wrong use of what I'm saying, because that's absurd.
Right.
Okay. No... Like, if the character were a real person in the world, there is no way in hell they would have forgotten their sword for 2 days before they suddenly, oh my God, we got to go back.
That's right.
You know, that just wouldn't happen. Like, I notice if I don't have my wallet in my pocket because my pants don't feel right.
Right.
You know?
But at the same time, in the earliest editions of D&D, wasn't, when Gary was actually writing them, wasn't Gary very specific about if they don't say they did something, they didn't do it?
I don't think so. I could go back and look. I don't think he was, because I don't think that's really in the spirit of what Gary intended.
Okay.
I think that's more of one of those like urban myths. Like, this is how badass Gary was to his players. Yeah. You didn't specify you wiped your hands after you went to the bathroom, so now your character has the Ebola virus. Jeez. I don't think that's not the one you get from E. coli.
E. coli, yeah.
Not Ebola.
But
very different.
But by the same token, that was pretty prevalent back in the day, is my understanding, where GMs were like very nitpicky about what you had done and hadn't done.
Well, like, here's the side that I miss. Okay? You have a group of players, they walk into, say, an office or a study or whatever. And they're looking for information. Nowadays, they just look and they say, okay, I'll search the office. Right?
Right.
And it's okay. Roll a perception check. And then you have the perception check and whatever and done. Mm-hmm. Okay. Once upon a time, what the players would do was the players would say, okay, I'm going to go check the desk drawers. You check the closet and you check the bookshelf. Right? Uh-huh. And then each one would interact with something in the room. And then, like, if there was a trap on the desk drawer that had the information, now you knew the character who was approaching the desk. Right? It wasn't just like, oh, you made your perception check and you failed to know there was a trap, so there's a trap.
Right.
Right? And so now the character goes over to the desk and he's like, okay, I'm going to search the desk. And it's like, what do you mean you search? Well, I'm going to open each drawer and just look inside. And it's like, oh, okay. When you open the third drawer down, a poison needle shoots out from a hidden catch and shoots you in the hand. Make a fortitude save.
And that's how we learn to check for traps all the time.
Right. So, well, no, but then the next time the party is looking for important information in the leader of the Assassin's Guild's office, mm-hmm. and they go to his desk, is like, I'm going to check the desk for traps first. It's like, what do you mean you're going to check the desk for traps? Well, I'm going to check each drawer and just examine the desk very carefully before I open any of the drawers. Yeah, and then the GM would say, okay, you run your hands along the drawers and you notice that one of the drawers there seems to be a thin filament running from the the edge of the drawer into a hole in the desk or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
You know? Or, you know, at that point, then you do the perception check. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a little bit of specificity there. And here's the other thing too. Like, okay, let's say the classic bookshelf, right?
Uh-huh.
And you have, and one of the books is on a hidden catch, so that if you'll tilt the book out, it opens the secret door, right?
Mm-hmm. Standard.
So now the player says, I want to check the bookshelf. And so you say, what are you doing with the bookshelf? And this says, well, I'm just going to look over the titles on the books, and I'll dust off any of them, dust off the titles of the books and see if any of the titles look interesting. And that person has no chance of finding that secret door. Because all they're doing is reading titles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is, in general, no reason, if you're just interested in a bookshelf, to start pulling books off the shelf anyway.
Right.
You know, if you suspect there is a secret door, you know, and this is very important too, because the secret door mechanics, if you look at the secret door mechanics in any edition of D&D, you'll notice that there's a chance to find the door and there's a chance to find the mechanism that hides it.
Mm-hmm.
So if the player is just looking at the titles on the bookshelf and one of the other players is, searching the walls and finds the outline of a secret door, but there's no obvious way to open it, now the party can look at the bookshelf and say, I'm going to do a thorough search of the bookshelf. I'm going to move the books around and, feel around and see if there's any. And then it's okay, make a search check. Yes, you turned up the hidden catch. Because if you just do this general search of the room thing, there's no reason to distinguish between the door and the mechanism that opens it. And there is nothing more frustrating then, because once you make a search check of the room is searched, to have found the door but not the mechanism, and there's nothing you can do. Because, I'm sorry, you already searched the room.
Yeah.
Well, can I search the bookshelf? It was in the room when you searched it.
That's right.
Well, what if I take all the books off the shelf? But you searched them.
What do you think search the room means?
Right? So to some extent, I kind of miss that specificity level.
Uh-huh.
Especially because when the party gets to the door and they see an office with a desk, a closet, and a bookshelf, and now it's like, we want to search this because we know we're looking for information. Right? We're looking for the Assassin Guild leader's hidden documents.
Right. The one in which he admits everything.
Right. His list of customers.
That's right.
We're looking for his customer list. The unwilling customers, not the willing customer list. Right. But as soon as they are, I'm going to go search the desk, or I'm going to go search the bookshelf, or I'm going to, root through the closet, they're actually thinking about that room as an office. And they're thinking about the things in that room. Where would I hide documents, I wonder? Well, probably in his desk drawers. That would be the most obvious spot. And if they don't find them in the desk drawers, it's like, maybe he put them in a specific book. Folded them up and put them in a book.
Yes. How to kill people for profit.
Right. But, but if it's just, okay, here is his office. Okay, we make a search check. Okay, you find the documents. The players aren't in that world, except they're like dipping a toe into the fictional world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like a step removed. It's like a video game. They're pressing buttons to interact with it.
Sure.
And this is why I said I've been kind of on an OSR rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
Because I made an important discovery. We've had a couple of conversations in the past about the OSR, you'll recall.
Yes, I do recall them.
Yeah. And we were not clear at the very beginning on what the OSR even entailed.
Correct.
Or why things were what they were and whatever. And basically, I have always personally characterized the OSR as people who just couldn't get with the program and understand that game design had evolved.
Right.
And the way Gary used to play was actually kind of terrible.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then the other day, I can't remember what, we were looking at a list of OSR games, and you brought up one game and you were like, how is this in the OSR? And
you're gonna, I can't remember now which one it was.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But it doesn't matter, because here's what was happening at the time.
Uh-huh.
I was learning more about the OSR.
Okay.
I've started reading some blog posts by prominent members of the OSR. I've been watching YouTube videos. I have become very interested in the channel of Kazimir Urbanski.
Okay.
No, and I know this guy is a divisive figure because he is a major jerk on social media. He is a troll worse than I ever was. And it is a character, just like it was with me.
Uh-huh.
Okay? He's the RPG pundit.
Oh.
Yeah, and he has started some big fights, and I know he has. And he upsets some people. But all of that aside, if you actually start listening to what he's saying, outside of social media, where everybody's just a jerk anyway,
mm-hmm.
and actually pursue, number one, the games he has designed, and number two, what he has to say about game design, and stay away from any of his commentary about the gaming community.
Right.
I have discovered what the OSR actually is.
Please tell me.
It's people who miss exactly what I said that I miss.
Aha.
Okay? They feel that modern games, while see, now this is the thing, they don't have a problem with things like universal die rolling mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the idea of the D20 for ability resolution does not faze them in the least. They don't have a problem with that. Okay. What they're mainly concerned about is that the game has taken several, I'm going to say, like, levels of zoom out of the world, so that it has now reached the point where the characters search the room rather than, I'm going to go check the drawer, I'm going to open each, you know, and then or I'm going to go check the desk, and then I describe, okay, the desk has 3 drawers, and there's a strong box on top of it, and there's a penciled cup, and whatever, right? And it's like, oh, I'm going to open the strong box, and well, the strong box is locked, and it's like, well, I don't know how to pick the strong box, but the thief does. So the thief will come over, I'm going to try and pick the lock on the strong box, and they pick the lock, you know, so that they're interacting with the world on a very granular level, a zoomed in level, and consequently are more immersed in the fiction of the world.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also sounds like it fixes another problem too.
Yeah.
Because there will be people who will jump in and say, but this is tedious and boring. And those people, I feel like, are going to be wrong, because what it does is, instead of, you know, Alice? Is it Alice for A? A is Alice?
Yeah, Alice, Bob, Carol, Dave.
Yes. Alice can walk in and search the room, and that room has been searched to the exclusion of everybody else. So that's Alice's spotlight time.
Right.
Where if you do it this other way, where, you know, they have to go into the room and then somebody searches the desk, somebody searches the bookshelf, somebody searches the closet, somebody searches, you know, the floor for hidden whatevers. Then as you deal with each of those, everybody gets a little bit of spotlight time. Right.
The other thing that it allows, and this is something I firmly believe in, that I know I get a lot of disagreement on, and I don't know how you're going to land on this, but if there's something that can't fail, I don't roll dice.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's something that can't succeed, I don't roll dice.
Mm-hmm.
It can't succeed, it can't fail.
Right.
For example, take the bookcase, the bookcase with the secret door mechanism on it, right?
Sure.
Okay. If a player sat there and said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to take all the books off the bookshelf. I'm just going to sweep them all onto the floor. Every single one. I can't take this anymore. There is no way he will fail to find that mechanism.
Correct.
None. Because as soon as he tries to pull that book off the bookshelf, the secret door clicks open. At that point, no perception check, no die roll, done. At the same time, the player who merely is curious about the books on the shelf and is reading the titles, and 1001 Ways to Train Your Dragon, and How to Kill for Fun and Profit, mostly profit, whatever, he is never going to find that mechanism. Because he's not touching the books.
Right.
Right? And if there's something hidden, like if someone takes the middle of the road, like where they say, okay, I'm going to search the bookshelf, then you say to them, what do you mean you're going to search the bookshelf? And if they say, I'm going to look at all the books and see if any of the titles are interesting, that's like, okay. Yep. No, none of the titles are interesting, but he has a first edition copy of How to Kill Profits for Fun.
Ooh.
And that, or something like that. But if the person says, well, I'm going to run my hands along the books and, I'll move any books that seem odd and whatever, then I'll have a die roll for it. And if they say, I'm going to painstakingly pull each book off the shelf, open it up, and then drop it on the floor, I'm going to say, you realize that's going to take you like a half hour. And that's fine. And you realize I'm going to roll a wandering monster check in that time, and something might come, the assassin might come to his office and like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to search every book one after another. Then that's fine. Then he's going to turn up his result, but I'm also going to I'm going to roll to determine if the assassin comes back.
Sure. You get some opportunity for some story in there too, strangely enough.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
It's weird. I'm not sure I understand it, but boy, does it sound like fun.
Yeah, so I'm not completely sold on everything the OSR has to say about everything.
Right.
Okay, but on that topic of just, we want to go back to the old days where players had to think of the world as a world and interact with it as it existed, rather than as a series of buttons that they can press their skills on.
Mm-hmm.
And that the details of what they said were more important. And this actually comes down to something that the OSR says frequently that becomes a big argument. And what they say is player skill, not character skill.
Right.
Okay. And that I find that while it's a useful quote, after you have explained all this immersion stuff, I don't find it as a useful quote to explain to someone who you haven't already had this conversation with.
Right.
Right? Because it's not really about player skill versus character skill. It's the player's brains in the character's body. So that the player has to project their own mind into the mind of the character and interact, they can interact with the world as the character. If the character has a skill they can use that skill, but they have to decide how that skill gets used in the world,
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough for them to just say, well, I look around.
Right. I'm
well,
going
you
to
look around and you see exactly what I described, because I described what you could see.
Personally, I think I'm going to favor any system which allows the players to be a part of the world in which they are playing,
mm-hmm.
rather than sort of an objective outside observer of the world. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. But it's, you know what? You might want to check out some of this OSR stuff.
I might. I just
They
might.
say some interesting things.
I think I will.
I'm not ready to join.
No.
I'm not going to be running Osiric next weekend, but
probably just as well.
Right. But there's a middle ground there. Okay. Oh,
yes.
Before we go to feedback, I really feel I have to mention this because I did mention that we were going to.
Mm-hmm.
Allie and I went to see Alita Battle Angel.
Oh, how did that go, sir?
She loved it.
Oh, good.
She loved it. And I mostly enjoyed it.
Mostly enjoyed it. Those are two different levels.
Well, yeah, maybe if I had to give it, like, let's see, out of 5, I'd give it a 4 out of 5, or 3.5 to 4 out of 5. 3.75 out of 5.
Are you sure you've landed? Can I
8 out of 10.
Okay, 8 out of 10.
No, 7 out of 10.
7.5 out of 10?
7.5 out of 10.
7.5.
Okay, 75 out of 100. It's a 75%.
Okay, 75%.
No, it's like a C+.
C+. Excellent.
B minus.
Excellent.
It's a B. No, you know what? No. Why am I overthinking this? It's a solid B movie. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thumb up, thumb down?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay.
I think it's a very thoroughly enjoyable movie. It has problems.
Mm-hmm.
There are spots where it drags a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it is, as you pointed out, it is an anime movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit stunned, when kind of like the elderly doctor man pulls out a rocket-powered sledgehammer and starts like going at these giant cyborg monsters. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So it's definitely over the top in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a thoroughly enjoyable and very heartfelt movie that actually also looked gorgeous. The special effects work, the motion capture work that they did, because like everybody in the movie is cyborgs. Okay. So you have like well, not everybody. A lot of people in the movie are cyborgs. So you have human faces and heads grafted onto robot bodies in various states of humanness. And they did like really seamless work on that. Like you could believe you were looking at a cyborg with a human face. Now I know people have seen Alita's face in the previews, and they purposely made her look not human. Like they made her eyes like 3 times too big.
Right.
But the rest of the characters do not look like that. They look like human cyborgs. Okay, she's different and she was meant to look different. So, but okay. I mean that's why James Cameron agreed to produce the movie, was so that he would get to play with all this new motion capture technology, because you know him and technology.
Yeah.
He loves the next big thing.
Okay.
But yeah, what a genuinely enjoyable movie.
Well,
I really enjoyed it.
I don't know what to do with you now. It sounds like you've had at least 2 pleasant experiences in the last week.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid now. We'd better get into feedback before something else goes wrong.
I'm going to have to change my name to the Happy DM.
Ben wrote into the comments on episode 65. Did you know that?
Yes, I did, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm the one who cut and pasted that into the document.
Oh, that's right. I thought we had a secretary suddenly. I was kind of hoping, really. Ben says, I've been interested.
Well, I was wearing a conservative skirt at the time.
Oh, so. All right. That's fine. I guess that'll have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Ben said, I've been interested in the conversation about running voice chat games online without using a virtual tabletop. It inspired me to resurrect a hobby project of mine that was gathering dust. Apparently that project is http://dice.house. It's
good that you read the...
Yeah, well, I could say dice.house and then nobody'd know what to do with it, because it doesn't conform to any of the standard common URL formats.
You know what? It doesn't have to.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, fine.
Hey, you're the one who convinced me that angry.games was a good domain.
It is. It's brilliant.
It is. It's excellent.
There you go. It's a little tool for sharing dice rolls online that aims to as frictionlessly as possible. Well, okay, hold on. Restart.
I cut and pasted. He missed a word.
Yes,
it aims to be as frictionless as possible.
Yeah, aims to be as frictionless as possible. I'd love to hear feedback, good or bad, if you check it out. So dice.house, that's an internet URL. Yes,
it is.
Check out.
I tried this out before I included the feedback, by the way.
And
it's a neat little die roller that you can just click on it and set up a private instance of it, and then invite other people to it so that 5 people can all be seeing the same die roller.
Cool.
And it's web based. It's very easy. It's a really neat tool if you combine it with voice chat. It's all you need to run a game.
Cool.
Unless, of course, you need maps and stuff.
Right. So. Discord itself has a little bot, by the way, for rolling dice. It actually has a couple of little bots, but the one currently being employed on my Discord server is Sidekick and his buddy D1C3. Sidekick rolls regular dice, cards, all kinds of different things, and D1C3 rolls FFG, Star Wars, and Genesis dice.
Oh,
yeah,
neat.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So those are available too, if that is a thing. But yeah, check out dice.house and let Ben know what you think of it. Wes,
of course, is there a way to contact Ben on there?
Yeah, you go. Let Ben know. You go into our comments section on episode 65 and reply to Ben and say, Ben, my God, this is brilliant. How are you not a millionaire already? Or some variation thereof. Wes from show 65 also says, so I know Angry said he didn't want to buy a new game, but y'all should really check out Forbidden Lands by Free League. I've run it with success without a map as it uses range bands. System has a lot of crunch. It's based heavily on old school D&D, but with modern mechanics. That being said, it is a dice pool system. It keeps it pretty simple without a bunch of post-roll math. It also has a solid crafting system that is incorporated into its settlement building system, and it has actual mechanical uses for material spell components, just in case you give up on 13th Age.
I did actually check it out.
Do tell.
I went over to Free League, and I'm intrigued enough that it will be a future purchase of mine. Also, I like that it's sold as a box.
A box?
Yeah, a box with the stuff in the box.
Stuff in the box. A box with stuff in the box. Wow.
There's a player's manual and a game master's guide and an adventures book and a map and some stickers.
And some cool cover art.
Yeah. The art actually looks really nice too.
No, I am intrigued.
Yeah, I am intrigued as well.
Player's manual with faux leather covers.
Ooh,
Game Master's Guide. That's right. You know how many foes you have to kill to get the leather? A lot. Legends and Adventures booklet. Color map. Sheet with stickers. Wow. Maybe I should get this thing as well for no known reason.
Yeah, right?
All right, I'll check that out. You've checked that out. Those are our words.
The Digressions and Dragons crew has spoken.
That's right. That is the end of feedback. Wow, that was quick.
Yeah, well.
That was quick. That's not technically the end of feedback. There is one more thing. There is one more thing. I don't know if we're in trouble or not.
Wait, Modifius makes a Kung Fu Panda board game?
Yes, they do.
Why didn't you tell me?
They had no idea you would be even slightly interested.
I loved Kung Fu Panda. And I'm sure a board game captures all the magic.
Well, there are like 3 films and a cartoon series to work with.
I loved Kung Fu Panda, the first film.
Okay. We had somebody write into the show.
I don't trust DreamWorks sequels anymore.
Okay. Fair enough. We had somebody write into the show via the email, which we do have. That's unsurprisingly, that's digressionsandragons@gmail.com. Just to inform us that they like the duck. So I'm just going to put that out there. The duck was liked.
They liked the duck.
Mm-hmm. And because you don't listen to the show, you have no idea. Wizards of the Coast has announced their next book. Would you like to guess what their next book is? Or would you just like to read the link you put in?
I would like to guess.
Okay, you guess.
I am going to guess that of course, I don't know the title.
Oh, of course not.
Because this is a guess out of the blue.
Yes.
But I am going to guess that it ties into a popular haunted house module that was first published. It was the first module published by the UK branch of TSR.
Oh.
And started off the classic U series of modules. Am I close?
Gosh, you could be. Don't know how you do it. This is amazing. I am amazed. Totally amazed. Out of the blue, you seem to have plucked all the relevant details. It's the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. What a thrill. So, here's what I know about this product. Okay. All the things you have said are true. It is adventure for levels 1 to 12.
Because they all are, by the way.
Yes, they are, because everybody stops playing. Everybody stops playing at level 12. We know this to be true now. Or at least they do now, because you don't have an adventure to go on after 12. But that's neither here nor there.
Yep.
The Ghost of Saltmarsh combines some very popular first edition D&D adventures, including the classic U series and some of the best nautical adventures from Dungeon Magazine. So you have The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, Danger at Dunwater, The Final Enemy, Salvage Operation, Isle of the Abbey, Temerot's Fate, and The Styes.
And I don't remember I don't recognize most of those.
Hurrah! Well, here's the thing. This is another one of those, like Tales from the Yawning Portal, where it's a collection of adventures that it sounds like they theoretically think are going to work together in a consistent and continuous way to take your character from level 1 to level 12.
You know what? I don't agree that's what we're seeing here.
You don't?
No, I think that the adventures are going to be more unified than that.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
What leads you to this strange and unusual conclusion?
I don't think it's merely a republication any more than any of the other adventures have been republications. You know, for example, Tomb of Annihilation. Although it was inspired by the original Tomb of Horrors.
Sure.
They used the Tomb of Horrors as basically, I guess, sort of the I don't know if it was the penultimate or the ultimate bit of that adventure. But there were a series of adventures spread out over multiple chapters, strung together with a narrative thread, and all located around Chult. You know? But they were specifically written for 5th edition. They were not merely republications and updates.
Whereas the Yawning Portal was just republication with updates to the current rules.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to read you a little bit here, just, because.
Okay.
All adventures have been faithfully adapted to the 5th edition rules of Dungeons & Dragons. Furthermore, this book includes details on the port town of Saltmarsh, as well as plenty of hooks to kick off each adventure. Play through each story in a seafaring campaign leading characters from level 1 through level 12, or pull out sections to place in ongoing campaigns in any setting. That to me screams, we have just updated these to 5th edition. And it's going to be like the Yawning Portal.
See, when they say adapted, I don't think they're merely reprinting.
Okay.
I really don't. Right. Especially because they say play through each story in a seafaring campaign. And that to me suggests that there is a narrative through line.
Okay. Well.
And they're using Saltmarsh as sort of the jumping off. Basically, it's the port. Even though the sinister secret of Saltmarsh was not itself a seafaring adventure. It was a Scooby-Doo haunted house.
Right. Well, our buddy Mr. Merles seems to think...
Look, I'm willing to be wrong on this.
I know. But he says, with its ties to ocean-based adventuring, talking about Saltmarsh, okay?
Mm-hmm.
With its ties to ocean-based adventuring, it was an obvious step to augment it with additional sea-based adventures and a robust set of rules for managing a nautical campaign. I don't know. But I'll tell you what. If this turns out to be just a series of adventures updated to 5th edition, I will do another review series on this.
Okay.
If it turns out to be just a collection, one big campaign thing, sort of modular in style, then I won't.
Basically the same as all of their other modules.
Right. Then I won't bother.
Yeah. Okay. So what do I get out of it?
You get nothing.
Well, I mean, it seems like we have a bet going here, and I should get a prize if I'm right.
I don't know that I don't know. Well, the prize is you get to read my reviews. If you're right, you
get the prize of writing a new review series.
Uh-huh.
If I'm right...
Okay, if you're right, what do you want?
I would like money.
You would like money.
Yes.
We cannot do that. I have taxes to pay. No, actually I have a better bet. You ready for this? I have a better bet. Okay. So, and obviously in order to find this out, we have to buy the book, right? Each of us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So if I'm right, you buy my book. In other words, you just reimburse me for it. If you're right, I reimburse you for your book.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else we want to say about the ghosts of Saltmarsh?
Yeah, not really. It was a neat adventure. And if you haven't read the original, you should. Because it was the first adventure published by a new group of module writers. Because they were starting at D&D. I mean, they had come from other projects, and it was a unique and very different type of D&D module at the time. Because it was basically a Scooby-Doo haunted house investigation. So I hardly recommend the original. Just as for the placing it in the historical context of D&D adventures. Okay, now I'm done. Speaking of things that start with A.
A, yes.
See, I can segue too.
Yes. You have something that starts with A?
The other thing that Wizards of the Coast threw out there is their Unearthed Arcana hit yesterday, though it's a week ago if you're listening to this on release date.
Right.
They threw out the Artificer again.
Oh, more artificing.
Too much. Well, a lot of people have opinions, it seems, including all the folks in my Discord chat.
What? People have opinions?
Yeah, but no two people seem to have the same opinion. Which seems to be par for the course, because I think this is the third time they have released the Artificer and can't figure out what to do with it.
Well, maybe they shouldn't do anything with it.
But they need to release it so that they can do Eberron, because you can't have Eberron without Artifice.
You can't.
No. Artificers were the best thing about Eberron, according to the people who think that there was anything good about Eberron. So they have released a new Artificer.
Okay, congratulations.
Yep.
What did they do? Let's cut this short. What are the sticking points?
Well,
that good, huh?
But see, this is I'm the wrong person to talk about it.
Okay.
So I guess it was kind of a mistake for me to throw it in the show notes, wasn't it?
All right.
I'm not a big fan of Eberron or the Artificer.
I thought you enjoyed Eberron as a setting.
I ran games in Eberron.
Okay.
But, you could do that without enjoying it.
All right. Okay.
Eberron's a big setting. If you avoid certain parts of it, it's not bad.
Okay.
Like the robots and
Right.
the lightning-powered magic trains
Well,
and
it's
the dinosaur-riding halflings.
It's been nice having you all as our listener base for up to this point for 7 episodes. And I just want to thank all of you for sticking around until Angry blasphemed against you.
You know what? I don't care. You can all get lost. If you like Eberron, you're wrong. You're categorically, axiomatically, provably wrong.
Okay. All right. I didn't, but that's okay.
Okay.
The only Eberron thing I liked about D&D was D&D Online until they started microtransactioning it.
Right? That was fun, wasn't it?
It was. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Choppy.
Okay, so there were aspects of D&D I liked, of Eberron I did like. Mm-hmm. I liked, one of the things I liked the most was how they handled religion in the game. How they handled the fact there were multiple churches, and how the polytheistic religion of the sovereign host was actually a pantheistic and overly inclusive religion. And how that actually played out and how it was treated. That was a really good thing that did not belong in a spellpunk game. It belonged in a nice medieval fantasy role-playing game, or maybe like ancient Roman. Where it showed a keen understanding of the gods were nature. The gods were the natural world. As opposed to the gods are, they have power over it but are separate. But, oh, wait. We're supposed to be talking about the Artificer, aren't we?
Sure.
So, they've been struggling with the Artificer in 5th edition.
Why ever for?
Well, because the original Artificer in 3rd edition keyed very heavily off the magic item mechanics in 3rd edition, which were very rigorous and well-defined.
Okay.
So that, and the basic idea of the Artificer was that he would craft magic items on the fly or convert normal items temporarily into magic items. So instead of, he was a spellcaster who enchanted, he could touch your sword and make your sword a lightning sword.
Hey, keep your hands off my sword.
Or he could, on the fly, slap together a couple of potions of that the party might need in the next few minutes or whatever, stuff like that.
So he's like that one guy in Pathfinder with all the bombs.
No, well, I mean there was a few things that went that way, but Pathfinder went off the deep end with the alchemical bombardier.
Oh, okay.
But no, he was more of like a magical craftsman on the fly. He was like Magic MacGyver.
Okay.
Which was kind of neat because you on the one hand, magic items were cool, but on the other hand, crafting magic items was utterly a disaster and took forever. So he was basically a guy who would just slap together magic items on the fly that the party needed as they needed them. And essentially that was how he cast his spells. Unfortunately, the biggest problem, he also made constructs. That was his other big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Golems, Warforged, and, from early on, he could have he had an animal companion that was a homunculus, which I was just looking back in the campaign setting to verify it. The homunculus there were a number of different types of magical homunculi that he could create, including a robot guard dog, which was kind of cool, called an Iron Defender. But yeah, so that was his shtick. And because D&D 5e doesn't have all of the rigorous magical item systems,
right?
The crafting magic items, but also it doesn't have a super systematic approach to magic items. Where like in D&D 3.5, a potion was any spell of levels 1 to 3 that targeted the self or an individual object could be turned into a potion.
Okay.
Okay, so because the Artificer could craft potions on the fly, effectively he had this spell list. The potions in 5e are, here's the list of potions we decided exist in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And lacking that rigorous system, the Artificer can't key into that now to have a spell list. So then they just have to invent all these new mechanics for the Artificer instead. You know, and they seem to have tried to tie some of it to creating magic items from the DM's guide.
Okay. So the Artificer can make single-use neato things. Is that pretty much it? Okay. Where's the problem with that? Does it break the game?
Well, no.
Okay.
Nothing about this breaks the game. But I'm commenting more on it because I can't assess it myself.
Sure.
What has not surprised me in the least is that 50% of the people who wanted the Artificer back think they nailed it.
Okay.
And 50% of the people who wanted the Artificer back think this is a disaster.
Oh. It's that well balanced.
It seems to be a 50-50 split.
Yeah. I mean, that's one compromise. They think
this one nailed it, but then people thought the last one nailed it, and then half the people thought that the last one didn't. And what it is they're doing the Ranger thing again, where they just keep rewriting it, trying to get it right.
Aha.
And then, of course, they decided that this one could have a homunculus that is basically a little demonic imp that vomits potions on people.
What now?
Yeah, okay. Or alternatively, has a spider bot gun turret.
A spider bot gun turret.
Oh, gun turret. Yeah, they call it an arcane turret. So turret is not my word. Okay, he could just slap together a magical object that has crab-like legs and functions as an arcane turret, having a flamethrower, a force ballista, and a shield. Oh, so it's like those the droidicas from Star Wars. So it has a force shield. Yeah.
Okay.
So
could.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Let's back up. Let's talk about this homunculus. A spell spitting homunculus. Is that what you said?
3 times per day, it oozes a fluid out of its body called an alchemical salve. It says it produces the salve and touches a creature and then gives them some sort of benefit. So basically, it is a mobile set of spells that you can cast on your allies. Yeah, but it does so by oozing potion out of its body and touching people. It also spits acid.
Wow. All right. So, so the benefits that its salve can give.
Yeah.
I see resilience. So temporary hit points. I see inspiration.
Yep. Basically a minor buff on ability checks.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not against those. You could do those by, why is buoyancy one of them?
And also, and when you say buoyancy,
yeah, it's not really buoyancy. It's
right.
It's flying.
Because if your allies are human, they're already naturally buoyant. Yeah, no, you can fly at a speed of 10 feet for 10 minutes.
Right.
Now, is that the speed of 10 feet per 10 minutes? Or, no. I understand. You gain a flying speed of 10 feet for the next 10 minutes.
I mean,
it's 10 feet per round.
I mean, okay. But I have to ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this not?
I have no answer.
Is this not something you could have done in earlier versions with the right combination of talents, feats, whatever you want to call them, and magical abilities?
I mean, I guess if you like, these are these magical effects that other classes could create.
Mm-hmm.
You know, giving allies the ability to fly, or giving temporary hit points, or giving a bonus to rolls.
Right.
Yes. Is there a way to get them in a mobile, thinking for itself companion critter that runs around the battlefield? Not that I'm aware of.
Oh. Okay.
I'm not sure.
Jeez.
Which is the thing, like, I'm not, like, so basically, this thing has a spellcasting attack, and it can cast 3 buffs on people.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why it needs to be a creature then.
I don't know either. Why isn't it just like a wand of floaty goodness or something?
Right. Or 3 different additional buffs in addition to the infusions that you can cast and the cantrips you can cast and the spell slots you can cast. And the magic items you can create.
Okay.
You know, here's also, and I understand why. It's because the original Artificer could make a homunculus.
Mm-hmm.
But you had options for different homunculi that filled different purposes.
Right.
Like you could build a little, like a little troll that worked the forge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Artificer could have a little blacksmith's assistant, right? Which has benefits to it, you know, or you could build a messenger flying cat lizard, it looks like.
Okay.
And it was, you know, it would fly around and deliver messages for you. And you could build this little smoky thief that would go and steal stuff for you. And you could send it off and go steal stuff. And you had the guard dog, which, as much as I make fun of it as, oh, it's just like an animal companion, it was actually a guard dog. And that was the idea, was you would build it to guard your lab or whatever. Okay, so you had these options, and they had dedicated purposes that made sense. Whereas this homunculus is just an acid-spitting source of 3 different buffs. And that's your homunculus option. Or, alternatively, your homunculus option is a spiderbot gun turret.
Now, let's look at this here, spiderbot gun turret.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So,
sure.
So you get this arcane turret.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, do we have to be clear that you do not get both of these options, you know, in the same Artificer?
Right.
They're 2 different.
Basically, you have. Yeah. Go ahead.
They're 2 different specializations.
Yeah, you have 2 different builds for the Artificer. One is the Potioneer. Yeah, the Alchemist and the Artillerist.
Okay. All right.
So the Potioneer and the Gun Turreter.
So it says, I'm reading this, and it says here that the turret is a magical object that occupies its space. Who else's space would it occupy? And and that has crab-like legs. So it's a weirdo apparatus of Qualish?
Well, I think it's actually a reference to the Arbalaster. Which was, and this was from one of the Eberron source books. I think this came in 4th edition, though. It was a small construct that was basically a crossbow with legs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it would walk around and, you know, it was a crossbow with legs, exactly what you'd expect a crossbow with legs to do.
Sure.
And it has a face painted on the front. The description seems to think that's important. It's got a smiley face.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
But yeah, so, I mean, but again, it was an animate crossbow. And that was the beginning and the end of it. Which, once again, as magical constructs go, if you're okay with, you know, magical homunculi and constructs, yeah, that's fine.
Uh-huh.
But that was just one of many options.
This turret is So it can be one of three things. It cannot be all three things at once.
Right.
And that's the flamethrower, the force ballista, and the defender.
Right.
Okay. I'm with you so far. Why does how come it explodes?
Because it's badly constructed. I don't know.
It says you can
because Dell made its battery.
Callback. If it says here, as an action, you can command your turret to detonate if you are within 60 feet of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody makes a saving throw. And I don't know. I mean, I know what one of the arguments is going to be.
Well, wait. I have a theory as to why it can explode.
Oh, okay.
Can the pet gun turret in like some Fortnite game do that?
Oh, no. You're gonna Tourborn us here.
I'm gonna what?
Tourborn.
What does that mean?
Tourborn is the dwarf in what's it called? The thing with the shooting and the bang bang.
That's what I was thinking of.
Overwatch.
Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, can the gun turret in Overwatch explode?
Well, sort of. I mean, a lot of it's been nerfed, I have to say. Okay, all right.
Arcane turret OP nerf, please.
So I have to. Who? Wizards does not design in a vacuum. Okay, as far as I'm aware,
no.
Anyway. It always seems to be in response to something. So here we have a homunculus that spits acid and has a special touch. And then we have a turret that does some shooting and then goes boom.
Yep.
Who asked for these? Which people out there said, no, this is what we want?
I don't know, because if I did know, I would take my baseball bat and I would go find them. I don't know who's asking for this. But in reading through this, and just like, obviously we're just skimming it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, like, the people who are saying this captures the feel of the Artificer, because I know there are people saying that this is the one they got right. What's wrong with those people?
I wish I understood what the feeling of an Artificer was. Because it seems to me an Artificer is somebody who picks up, I don't know, a teapot, and waves their hand over it, and then the teapot walks around and serves tea. I have no idea. It's just a random guess.
Yeah, no, that's a thought. Yep.
Okay, and maybe on the battlefield they look at your stabby stick and they make it slightly stabbier.
Mm-hmm. You know who the teapot is, or the teapot is. The Artificer was the guy who he tinkered with everybody's stuff. So like you would, he would, you'd be like, oh shoot, where's my sword? And he'd be like, here's your sword. It shoots lightning now. Right?
Oh.
Or the guy who had a gadget for every situation.
Right.
It's like, oh no, there's a locked door. And then he would reach into his pocket and he would pull it, he would unfurl like the thieves' pick, the leather thing where they wrap up their thieves' picks, except it was filled with magic wands. And he would go down through and find the wand of knock and go,
sure, and
unlock the door. He's the Artificer.
He's the magical equivalent of the mad scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where none of his stuff actually makes any sense. But it all seems to come together.
I don't want to say that because you know what? Within the physics of the world, within the rigorous magic system of D&D 3.5, his stuff made sense to such a degree that his existence in the world made sense as a response to the limitations around wizardry.
Yeah.
Like, because many magic item types, whole classes of magic items were invented in the system to lift the restrictions of Vancian spellcasting. So where you could see, okay, if I were a wizard in this world and I had this power and it was as limited as Vancian spellcasting is, naturally these are the things I would invent. I would be looking to break down the limitations.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
And the Artificer fit into that as the person who was on the forefront who said, you know what, if we have all these tools, we don't need the wizard anymore.
There's, I'm thinking of Robert Asprin in the Myth series of books.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Have you read those at all, or am I going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Masha.
There you go. She's supposedly this super powerful wizard. Blah blah blah. Really, what it comes down to, spoilers, is that she has a bunch of magic rings.
Well, she had jewelry, she had belts, she had amassed a huge collection of magic items. But there was more to it in the world of in the dimensions, I guess you would say.
Yes.
She was a specific type of wizard. Wizards referred to her as a mechanic, and they would refer to them with disdain. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just that she had amassed this collection of magic stuff. That was a thing that fit into the world. It was a role she filled in the world.
Right.
There were other mechanics too. As a consequence of freely available magic items, there are going to be some people who now just become so, they have the right magic item for everything, and they become so good at tinkering with them that they can get their magic items to do more.
Right. This was how you got in D&D, this is where your use magic item came in, was your rogue could effectively be a magic user based on the items that they had about their person.
Right. And you know what? Quite frankly, it was pointed out to me earlier, because I had a theory about this. And the theory that I put forth was the original 3.5 Artificer was written from the mechanics first, where somebody looked at this and said, with this magic item system and stuff, this would be a role, a character type for the world. And it was confirmed, apparently. Keith Baker had said exactly as much in interview, because the Artificer is exactly what you say. He is the use magic device skill taken to its logical extreme.
Yeah.
But magic items and stuff don't work that way in 5th edition anymore. I mean, that was a consequence of the fact that magic items had to be scammed into thinking you were the right class to use them.
Right.
Or that you had certain magic items required knowledge of the magic to use. So if you were using a spell completion item, you had to at least be able to cast the spell someday. Like it had to be a wizard spell and you had to be a wizard. That kind of a thing.
So is use magic device still a thing in 5e? Is that?
It is not.
It is not. Okay.
If you do not meet the prerequisites for a magical item and you do not have a class feature that specifically says you can use magic items even if you don't meet the prerequisite, you do not meet the prerequisite for the magic item and can't use it. They are hard and fast limits.
Has Wizard said this is the final at last, no more after this Artificer?
No, of course not.
Oh, okay.
This Artificer starts with the same paragraph as every other thing in UA. This character class is presented for playtesting and to spark your imagination. These game mechanics are in draft form, usable in your campaign, but not refined by full game development. The class is not officially part of the game. For these reasons, it is not legal in D&D Adventurers League events.
Okay.
Side effects may include homunculus vomiting on your skin.
There you go. So basically, this is going to be the Ranger all over again. There's going to be like 16 billion different versions, and
this is the third one already.
And almost nobody will be happy with any of them.
Nope. No, and my contention is it's because they are trying to recapture something that doesn't work in their current system. Because it was written from the standpoint of D&D 3.5.
Uh-huh. I'm going to agree with you.